With the release of Stray, a lot of people are wondering if short games are the future. This is because Stray is one of the most loved games ever, but the main story is 4.5 hours and the main plus extra is 6 hours. Completing everything in the game is 8.5 hours. But the game is also cheap, is under $30. The game also has a cat, and it looks like a AAA game without the fillers. Now let's compare these to the AAA games. The Last of Us Remaster is $70. So a lot of AAA games want to be more expensive even if they don't deserve it. One of the longest AAA games is Dying Light 2. And sure, the game is long, but it has a lot of fillers. For example, I hated Spider-Man because of the fillers. I know that I don't always have to do the side missions or the collectibles, but it still annoys me because I know they spent a lot of time and money on that when they can make the game cheaper or at least make the main mission more interesting. For example, Ravenous Devils. I have no idea if I said that right. The game is under $5. And the game was very short, 4.5 hours, 5 hours main and extra. But now they released Endless Mode and the game is even more fun. My main issue with AAA games is that they are trying to be huge. And a lot of people don't have the time to play a very huge game, especially if it's a game full of fillers. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's fun with Spider-Man to go all over the place and collect things. At first. But then it gets annoying, because you see that in a lot of games. So the more games you play, the more fillers you see. And you will notice that all are the same. It's a map full of things to do, useless things. And the next mission or side mission is always on the other part of the map. Because that's how a game can be 100 hours instead of 10 hours. So maybe a game like Stray is loved because it has a cat and because it's cheap. But it also doesn't have a lot of AAA bullshit. I want to complete everything in a game because I love that game. Or because the game has replay value. But I don't want to complete it or replay it because I didn't get a 100% completion rate. Or because I still have a lot of boring side missions. So for me, I kind of hope that games will be shorter. And don't get me wrong, they can still add a lot of things in a video game even if it's short that you can play over and over. But they should at least add something interesting. For example, they should tell me secrets about a character in the game or about a story. But they should stop making it boring. For example, I love Fire Emblem Three Houses. But I hate the fact that I have to have 5 different windows opened in my browser because I have to make sure I say the right stuff to the right person to max out every character to find out their story or other useless stuff. I mean, at first it's fun, but then it gets very annoying because the game is long and I have to redo everything over and over for every character. So for some people it may be fun to have a game like Dying Light 2 where you can play 500 hours. And you have to try everything in the game, do every side mission, collectible or whatever. Dialogue tree. If you really love the game and you don't have a lot of money, I guess that's awesome. Because you have a reason to play that game until you complete the 500 hours. But you can find so many games and some of them are even free. I mean, you may have a game that you want to replay over and over or play it as long as you can. But there's also a lot of games that you didn't try. And I think you're missing out on a lot of stuff. I think the main problem with most AAA games, not all, is that they try to make you stay in the game as long as possible. And not because the game is very fun, but because leveling up is very hard. You get a lot of side missions to give you items that you may use or not. I don't know, I just think sometimes less is good. I mean, a game can give you a special item because you finished a side mission, or they can make you play 10 side missions, very boring side missions, and give you 10 different items that you can use to make one interesting or somewhat interesting item, or weapon, or armor, whatever. Anyway, in the end, I think the most important thing is if the game is fun or not. Because a game can be very short, but it can still be boring. And other games, for example, like The Witcher 3, like Persona, can be huge, but it can still be fun. But what I prefer the most is that the game gives me an option to replay the game instead of giving me options for side missions or useless collectibles. For example, I replayed Resident Evil 4 a lot because I wanted to try the guns that I unlocked. So there are stuff that can make a game very fun and long. But I don't want to replay a game because I forgot a collectible. So is a 3-hour game the future? I don't think so. I mean, I still like a long game. I just wish they contain more creativity. For example, in Dying Light 1, you got some interesting weapons. You got the Excalibur, you got the alien gun or whatever it was. And even if that game wasn't that interesting, I mean the story wasn't that interesting, it was fun to do those side missions and get something new. Something that made me want to try more side missions or explore the map. Because giving me an item or an armor that's slightly better, it's not always fun. And it gets boring really fast. So in the end, I don't think it's about short games or long games. I think it's more about the gameplay, the creativity, and the reason why the game is short or long. Resident Evil 2, for example, was short, but it was very fun, so I replayed it a lot. Because you also got a lot of stuff unlocked that made the game more fun. So what do you prefer, short games or long games? Because I played them both, and I feel a burnout with the long games. Especially because they forgot the fun part. But I had a lot of fun with Stray and Revenue's Devils. And even Resident Evil 2. But I think it's because of the games, not because they are short. But I am really curious what you think. Do you prefer a short game with replay value or a long game with a lot of collectibles and side missions?